room. It has a yeah. It has a what do you call it? AP. So that's why. But I didn't know you guys took the thing from there. I'm already published. I already published it. So let's see if it's. Can you check on your end? Yeah, I'm not gonna bother to get from the other side. It'll take me half an hour. All right.
Today is the day. The Rabbi experience. The hand grabs your soul. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat 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 shalom. Shabbat 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 shalom. Shabbat 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 shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat 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 shalom. Am Yisrael, 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 All Avinu Chai, All Avinu Chai, All Avinu, All Avinu, All Avinu Chai, All Avinu Chai, All Avinu Chai, All Avinu, All Avinu, All Avinu Chai. Evenu Shalom, Evenu Shalom Alechem, Evenu Shalom Alechem, Evenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Alechem, Evenu Shalom Alechem, Evenu Shalom Alechem, Evenu Shalom Alechem, Evenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Alechem. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, 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 Shalom. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Beni por la paz de Jerusalén. Beni por la paz de Jerusalén. Beni por la paz de Jerusalén. Jerusalén por siempre viva en paz. Shalom, 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 Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, 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 Shalom Yerushalayim. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom.
Why don't you sit for a free jacket?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Baruch atah Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Elu HaGadol, HaGadol, HaTorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Baruch atah Elohei Avotenu. וחיים בחסד וחיי מתים ברחמים רבים ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ברוך אתה אלוהי אבותינו אתה גיבור אתה מחיי מתים אתה אדוני וחושיע אתה אדוני אלוהינו ברוך אתה אלוהי אבותינו עומד נוכלים ורופא חולים רופא חולים אסורים ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ברוך אתה אלוהי אבותינו ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו אשר מלך דרכו
Looks like it's not on, but also it's all twisted. It's going to make me.
Oye, y las empanadas también.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Just trying again. Shabbat Shalom. Just checking one more time. That's great. There we go. I hope you're warm enough. If you're not warm, you can go like this. It'll warm you up.
Are you warm enough?
What?
Are you warm enough?
You can't go by me. I'm actually hot. Can't go by me. I'm in my 50s. You remember what that's like?
Yeah, right.
My mother used to call them midlife crisis flashes. My mother used to call them midlife crisis flashes. I said, Ma, it's either a midlife crisis or hot flashes. It's not a midlife crisis flashes. We had a joke about that. If you're actually uncomfortably cold, you need to let staff know so that you can go inside. Adama, page 1. Veshamayim, still page 1. Kol ha'esh, tzlil hamayim, ani margish zabegufi, beruchi v'nishmati. 1 second. Adama, Adama, v'shamayim, chol ha'esh, tzlil hamayim, ani margish the sky, heat of fire, sound of water. Together I can feel it in my body, in my spirit, in my soul. Hey, ay, 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 hey, ay, 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 hey, let's go to page 3. Page 3. And we're going to light, oh, excuse me, page 2. I'm sorry, page 2. That's what I meant. Page 2. You know, I need to tune my guitar. Something went wacky. So talk amongst yourselves. Just give me 1 minute.
Very interesting.
Sometimes the weather can make the instrument go out of tune. It contracts or expands the strings. Because if you think of it, last time we were outside, it was like 90 out.
Now it's like 6
I have a sensitive ear, so when it's off, it feels really painful for me. Let's see, we're almost there. Ah, that's so much better, isn't it? All right, that was killing me. All right, here we go. Page 2. Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hashalom Malachei Elyon Melech Malachei Hamlachei Kadosh Baruch Hu Boachem L'Shalom Malachei Hashalom Malachei Elyon Melech Malachei Hamlachei Kadosh Baruch Hu Baruchuni L'Shalom Malachei Hashalom Malachei Elyon Melech Malachei Hamlachei Kadosh Baruch Hu Seichem L'Shalom Malachei Hashalom Malachei Elyon Melech Malachei Hamlachei Kadosh Baruch Hu. Let's turn to page 3, and as we prepare to bring in Shabbat with the candle blessings, let's take a deep breath, or really as deep as you can. And now let's let it out. One more time, a deep breath. And now let's let it out. Isn't it a blessing to be able to breathe? that funny? How come it's funny? Right? Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Shel Shabbat Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר וציוונו להדליק נר וציוונו להדליק נר של Shabbat. You know, I grew up here in California. I'm just reflecting on how you're bundled up and I'm wearing a sleeveless shirt and I'm hot and you're cold. So when I lived in New York the first time in the beginning, I lived in an apartment in the West Village of Manhattan. And so, you know, it was October, it was November, I'd look outside, I would see beautiful blue skies, and I would wear something like this, maybe with shorts. You know, I was in my 20s. I'd walk out, it would be freezing, like 40 degrees. I never had that in my life unless I went to the snow in Big Bear. But by the time I got outside, it was too late. I would have been late to class. To go back up and get my, I was in rabbinic school, you know? So I'd be like, all right, what can I do? Just go for it. And I'd run across the village because my classes were on Broadway, for those of you who know New York, Broadway and 4th, West 4th and Broadway. So I'd just run thinking maybe I would get heated up by running. It didn't work. When you put a California girl in New York and it's 40 and she's wearing shorts and this tank top, there's no way to warm up. I'd get home at the end of the day, just, and I would just hop in a hot shower for like 15 minutes just to calm down. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking of right now. Oh, those days. All right, let's make the blessing over Kiddush. Yom HaShishi, Vayechu HaShamayim B'aretz v'chol tzva'am, Vayechal Elohim b'yom HaShvi melachto asher asa, Vayishbot b'yom HaShvi melachto asher asa, Vayivarech Elohim et yom HaShvi v'kadesh oto, Ki bo shavav mikol melachto asher b'ray limasot, Savrin Rabbanan v'Rabbotai, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzah banu, V'shabbat kodsho be'avahu v'ratzanu chilanu, Zikaron l'maaseh Breshit, Ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh, Zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, Kivanu v'acharta, Ve'otanu kidashta, Mikol ha'amim, Ve'shabbat kodshecha, Ve'ahavahu v'ratzon, Inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. And we'll all drink a little bit later on. Can I ask someone for a little cup of water only? I got my fingers really sticky and I don't want to touch my guitar. For some reason this has grape juice, so if I could get that, thank you so much. Would somebody like to lead the motzi? Go ahead, one sec. Wow, gorgeous. Okay, go ahead. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamotzi lechem min ha'oretz. Amen. Beautiful job. We're on page 4. Let's take a deep breath again as we go into the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shoshana, do you want to lead us in the Ve'ahavta, please? I think we can bring the microphone to you. That's Shoshi right back there. Yeah. Right back there.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
Yashar, great job. Bottom of page 4, we read in English, love the eternal your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. We're on page 5 now, and it's my honor to offer you this blessing, a blessing of healing to all who are in need of healing. Misha berach avotenu, Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, v'imotenu, sarv karachel v'leah, hu yivarech v'rapet kol hacholim b'kehilah shalanu, the Los Angeles Jewish home. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, send your blessing of healing to all members of our community that are in need of healing, all of our residents that are in need of healing and their loved ones, all of our staff that are in need of healing and their loved ones, all of our volunteers that are in need of healing and their loved ones, and all of our rehab patients that are in need of healing and their loved ones, that they should all, anyone who needs it, has a refuah shlema, a complete recovery of body and of spirit, along with all those among the people of Israel who are struggling for wholeness. And we say together, Amen. And now a blessing upon each of your heads on this Shabbat. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Yaher Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God's light shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God gaze upon you and your loved one aloud as we go to the Kaddish on page 5. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'almad yivrach v'yirtei v'yamlich malchutei. D'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. B'agalau v'zman kari v'yimru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam l'almei almaya. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'yimru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say together, Amen. We're on page 6. But before we get back to songs and prayers, I wanted to reflect on the unique time of year on the Torah calendar, the interesting, not unique, I guess, but interesting time of year as we find ourselves which is the story of Noah and the ark. And I think that whoever crafted our tradition, and it's up to you whether you feel it was God who wrote the Torah or our ancestors who wrote the Torah, but whoever wrote the tradition, they wanted to deal with ethics and morality right at the get-go. In other words, there was not this meandering around. Boom, we get hit hard with it because it's the core of our tradition. What do I mean? Well, first of all, the Torah begins with, God said, let there be light, and there was light. And so, boom, right away we learn about the power of words. The power of words. We learn immediately, and if you are an anthropologist or sociologist, and you compared our creation story, because by the way, every peoples in the world has a story to tell about how the world was created, including scientists. Right? Everyone has a theory. Everyone has a story. But uniquely to our story, the focus is on language. I always wondered why it doesn't say in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not gossip. You know, it does focus on speech in one of them, but it's don't bear false witness. In other words, don't be a liar in court. Don't be a liar in court. That, I guess, trumped it. But you don't really need it in the 10 Commandments because the Torah just blasts it at you. By showing you that God, in our view, creates the world with words. God says, Yehi or, let there be light. We're told in not so many words, guess what? You who were made in God's image, which we also learned in last week's Torah portion, you have the power with the words of your mouth to create or destroy, just like God. And it's true. It's true. Every adult can look back on a time that someone said something to them that hurt so much it's like it destroyed your world. And we all know that we have had things said to us that lit us up, that made us feel good. And we know that every day we can do that for other people. So the power of language. So there you go. And by the way, the rabbis will later say that not gossiping is the hardest mitzvah, in the sense that people do it almost every day. Lashon hara, using your tongue for evil. They said it's the hardest one. Isn't that interesting? Not murder, not honoring your parents, not tzedakah, but not gossiping. Okay. Then you have the creation of human beings, and God says that it's tov me'od, very good. So we learn that from a Jewish point of view, we are good people by nature. And when we stray from that, it's against our nature, that we're really good when it comes to ethics and values. In other words, that would mean that when you do a nice mitzvah, you're being you. And when you violate mitzvot and sin, you're not really being yourself. That's the idea, okay? And then, of course, you have the biggest crime in the world in last week's Torah portion. You have a brother killing a brother. Fancy word for what Cain did to Abel is fratricide. You don't hear it a lot because, thank God, it doesn't happen very often. But the first human family has murder within the family. And you're going, my goodness, human beings are capable of even the darkest things. We better be careful. Human beings have that capacity. So then you jump ahead to this week's Torah portion, and you have Noah and the ark. So what happened? The earth was very corrupt. People were being evil. The Torah doesn't even go into details about exactly what we were doing that was so horrible, but humanity was just corrupt completely. But Noah was a tzaddik. And that's where we have the introduction of the word tzaddik. Some of you who came to class with me this week, we did a deep study of what that meant, that Noah was a righteous person, and was he just righteous for his generation? So I don't want to repeat that. But I'm happy to fill people in later, tomorrow, next week. But I do want to focus on the word tzaddik. According to Jewish tradition that we'll develop later, there are 36 people alive at every given moment who are so righteous, they are tzaddikim or tzaddikot, who are so good-hearted, who are so kind, who are so loving, that because of their goodness, God forgives the rest of us. I'm going to let the plane pass because it's a little loud. That's my ride. Oh, that's a bird. That's not the plane. It looked like a plane for a second. It could, yeah, if I hold on tight and lose a little weight. I'd have to hold on tight and lose a little weight. Right. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. So, a tzaddik is the highest compliment that you could say about somebody. It's like a mensch, but even higher in a way. You know what mensch means in English, right? A person. A mensch is just not technically it just means a person. A mensch is a man in Yiddish, right? But you're right. When we say, what a mensch, we think of someone who goes out of their way to do good deeds, a mensch. A tzaddik, though, is a righteous person, like they live every moment of their living being. All they're focused on is doing good, healing the world, walking in God's ways. Tzaddik. That's right. One of the mysteries of the tzaddikim, the 36 tzaddikim, is they don't know that they are one of them. Because if you thought, hey, maybe I'm a tzaddik, you probably aren't, because you would have been too humble to let it even cross your mind, right? But it's a very inspirational. I said that the Torah, right at the get-go, is focusing on being a mensch. So later, we're going to have a lot of laws about how the Kohen slaughters the sheep and the goats in the temple. And we're going to have all kinds of stories and narratives about jealous brothers and sisters. We're going to have stories about infertility. We're going to have stories about favoritism, that a parent favors a child, right? We're going to have all that going on. We're going to have the story, of course, of the slavery in Egypt and the exodus from Egypt and the journey. And yes, 613 mitzvot are going to appear in the Torah. But the Torah starts out right at the get-go saying, be a mensch, try to be a tzaddik, try not to do lashon hara, to use gossip or say harmful things, and of course, try not to harm anybody else, right? That's what the Torah is telling us right away. Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
That many years ago, that all these things were thought of.
It's amazing that our ancestors thought of these
Yes.
things. Yeah, I agree.
They were like way ahead of their time.
They knew what mattered.
Yes.
They knew what mattered even then. I think that's really true. That's true. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Oh, that's so sweet of you to say. Thank you. Well, you always do too. Frankie, I think, wants to say something. Thank you.
It said, you take your wife and your sons and their wives and go on the ark that is 40 days and 40 nights, and I bless you for the rest. And once.
Frankie, you have a sharp memory for what happened in the Noah and the ark story. That's right. God says to Noah, you got to build this ark. By the way, someone might ask, as the rabbis do, if God is all powerful, that God can send a flood, why does God make Noah build a boat? That's a schlep. To build a boat that's big enough to hold a zoo, I took my middle child, Bot, on a cruise once, and when we got up to the boat, Bot looked up. They were about like 13 years old, and all of a sudden these are the words that came out of their mouth. Who thought of putting a hotel on a boat? Right? Because that's a cruise ship. Who thought of putting a zoo on a boat? In this story, there's a zoo on the boat, but the question that the rabbis ask is, does God really need Noah to build an ark? If God is all powerful, why doesn't God wipe everyone, right? And the answer the rabbis give is, building an ark is going to take a very long time. And it's a very weird thing to do. So the hope was that as Noah built the ark, that people would come by and go, hey man, what are you doing? And then Noah would be able to say, well, you guys haven't listened until now, but God is very unhappy with your behavior, so maybe you want to change your ways and become good instead of evil. That was the hope. That it would take so long to build the ark that Noah would have an opportunity to wake people up from their evil behavior. But this generation was so awful that it didn't happen. In all the time Noah built the ark, Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Yisrael Ve'imru, I can hear you. Imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom Yaseh Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Yisrael Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We learned another Oseh Shalom a while back. Let's see if you remember it. Same words, newer melody. This is one of the melodies that my kids and Ilana's kids sang at summer camp. Maybe we even sang at a summer camp. I don't know if it's old enough. Ose shalom bimromam, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimromam, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimromam, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromam, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Join us. Oseh shalom bimromam, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromam, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Hine. One sec. Ellen's going to lead us in Hine Matov, and then we'll join her.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים ונעים. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים ונעים.
Let's all join you. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Yasher Koach, Ellen, thank you. Lecha, we're still on page 6. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, enei Shabbat, nekabla, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom mevorach. We're on page 7 now. More than the Jewish people have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept us a people. Everyone else, Shamra Bnei Yisrael, et Shabbat, לעשות את השבת, לגוד המריד עולם, ושמרה בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורות המריד עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרה בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורות המריד עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרה בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורות המריד עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרה בני ישראל את השבת, לדורותם בריתם. We're going to conclude with Adon Olam on page 8. Before we do, I want to thank everyone for coming. It's so good to be together. Our staff works so hard because they want to give you the experience of togetherness. It's easier to be separate on the floors, but we love to be together, don't we? With Taper and with JEK and all the floors mixed together, we really remember that we're a community. We're very lucky to have a community. Most of your peers outside of the Jewish home don't go to synagogue anymore because of COVID and other worries. Here, everyone feels safe and we're so careful. And as a result, we're able to have freilachnis and joy and Shabbat together. So thank you so much for being here. It's really great to be together. You know, the rabbis talk about how we enter after the high holidays and Rosh Hashanah and then Yom Kippur and then Sukkot and then Simchas Torah, we get into a month called Cheshvan. The rabbis say that when Tishrei ends, the month of the holidays, and Cheshvan begins, they say it's Mar Cheshvan. They say it's bitter Cheshvan because there are no holidays. I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a relief for some people after coming to shul so much. So we don't have holidays, but in the secular calendar, there's going to be Halloween. In the secular calendar, there's going to be Veterans Day, which we will honor all of our veterans, both who served in the IDF and also who served in the American Army. We even have some people who served in the Canadian or British Army or Navy, in different departments of the military, and we're going to honor our vets. There'll be the secular American holiday of Thanksgiving, and then, before you know it, we will have Hanukkah, which this year comes in November. Isn't that wacky, Ilana? To have Hanukkah in November, I think it's November 28th. So it's next month already. Yeah, it's the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. So you're going to go from turkey to latkes without missing a beat. It's going to be very exciting. Which Adon Olam do you want to do? Sufganiyot. What's that? Sufganiyot also, jelly donuts. What? Which Adon Olam? Right? Oh, that one, okay? Adon Olam. Adon Olam. Asher Malach. Page 8. B'terem kol. Yetzir nivra. Heit nasa. Bechefsa kol. Azay melech. Shemonika. The second paragraph. V'hachareim kichlot hakol levado imloch nora v'hu haya v'hu haveh v'hu yeh Take a deep breath. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra le'et nasa b'chefsa kol azay melech shemo nikra acharei kiflot hakol levado imloch nora v'hu haya v'hu haveh hu yeh b'tifara Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra le'et nasa b'chefsa kol azay melech shemo nikra אחרי כיכות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובד בתפארה והוא היה והוא עובד בתפארה. The third stanza. והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז, והמשחק, והוא אלי, וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי, בעת צרה, בעת צרה, והוא ניסי, והוא ניסי, ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי, ויום אקרא, deep breath, here we go. אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה. We usually don't do the whole thing, we're doing the whole thing this time. בידו אפקיד רוחי בעת אישן ואירה ועם רוחי גביעתי. Now it says this, Adonai li, God is with me, velo ira. So I'm not going to be afraid. God is with me, I will not be afraid. Adonai li, velo ira. Adonai olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra le'ed nasa v'chetzo kol azay melech shemo nikra אחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה הוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא עת נשא וחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה. Shabbat Shalom!